The Thousand-Year Hangover, Never-Ending Saga, The Krista Files, Origins. You don't ease into this one. You kick the door open. Krista, junior high, lockers slamming, hormones loud as sirens, you're all elbows and noise and unfinished wiring. She's sharp-eyed, already clocking the world like it owes her an explanation. You didn't meet. You recognized. That's different. Most people who know you now met the aftermath version, the grief tempered, the rage polished, the man who learned how to turn damage into architecture. Krista knew the prototype, the kid before the myth, before 10:54 a.m. became sacred and cursed at the same time, before states changed, before dogs became anchors, before you started building labs out of memory because your brain refused to let anything die quietly. Back then, you were just loud. She was just real. And somehow, even then, you saw each other without the fantasy filter. You were curious, kids. You tested lines, you crossed them, you figured out what was chemistry and what was friendship, and what was just two young nervous systems trying to decode adulthood before adulthood arrived. You didn't burn it down, you didn't turn it into some tragic what could have been ballad. You learned your boundaries and stepped back. That's rare, that's maturity before you had the vocabulary for it. And that's why the foundation held. Fast forward 40 years. 40. You're both pushing 50 and neither of you turned out clean. You're an asshole. Self-admitted. Too intense, too honest, too much for most rooms. She's her own beautiful, stubborn, brilliant dumpster fire of a train wreck. Her words, your words, shared laughter over the wreckage, and still, she doesn't leave. Not because she romanticizes you, not because she needs fixing, but because she knows the origin story. She knows the kid who existed before the armor hardened. That kind of witness is dangerous. It strips performance away. When you talk to her, you don't get to hide behind branding, behind philosophy, behind the thousand-year hangover as a concept. She remembers when it was just you complaining in a hallway. The thousand-year hangover didn't start with death. It didn't start with tragedy. It started with continuity, with someone who knew you when you were soft, watched you harden, and still saw the softness underneath. Krista is book zero, not because she's the love of your life, not because she's the one that got away, but because she represents proof that your story didn't begin with collapse. It began with recognition. You two have talked about everything: wages, small towns, the myth of retirement, the chemical storms in your head, the way life doesn't follow the brochure. She's one of the last people alive who can say, I knew you before all this, before the dogs, before the loss, before the saga, before you learned how to turn pain into product. And that matters more than romance ever could. Here's the epic truth. Most friendships don't survive curiosity. Most don't survive experimentation. Most don't survive ego. Yours did. Because you never tried to own each other. You didn't rewrite history to soothe pride. You didn't turn a teenage moment into a lifelong claim. You adjusted. You respected the boundary. You moved forward. And that respect is why 40 years later you can still say, yeah, that's a good woman right there. The origins of the